Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Listen, today's broadcast is a little different from my normal setup, okay? But I wanted to give a full disclaimer before the video starts that by no means will there be any clips from the Father's Day documentary on YouTube, okay? And that's by Kirk Franklin. I want to make sure that I preface this video with that. There is a copyright on the video, so I will not be using any footage, okay? This is strictly a review, my personal thoughts. I hope that you all enjoy. Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Catrice, and especially if you are new, welcome to Cocktail Hour with Catrice. Listen, this is a different setup than my normal setup for my YouTube lives, Facebook, and Twitter live stream. I normally go live maybe once or twice a week, but I wanted to make this video separate, okay? The Father's Day video, I believe, came out about a day or so ago on YouTube, and it has garnered, I think, well over 100,000 views at this point. Again, it's copywritten by the For Your Soul, I think it's For Your Soul Entertainment, okay, and that's Kirk Franklin's, I believe that's his company. But I wanted to give my honest review about this, and let me just tell you all, if you have not seen it, I encourage you all to stop watching this video, go watch it, and then come back to this review, okay? It's a lot to unpack. I actually, one of my Facebook friends, not followers, I'm talking about my regular Facebook, he put up online, you know, please, if you're going to watch it, just prepare yourself in advance. It's heavy. It's very heavy. That's what he said. And I actually forgot about it throughout the course of the day until I went on to Instagram for a brief second. I said, oh, that's right. I have to watch it. And I noticed it was only about 30 minutes or so in length. And so I said, okay, maybe let me just see what's going on. And I like how Kirk separated this documentary into 3 different parts. The 3 parts was, part 1 was called The Genesis, part 2, Revelation, and part 3, Reconciliation. Now, I don't make any qualms about telling you all here on this channel that when I left the ministry 9 years ago, I have not been a avid follower of gospel music, Christian, contemporary Christian music, none of that. I have my favorite worship songs and my favorite gospel songs, but I don't really follow, the artists, the trends, or anything. I just don't do it, because I've been out of the ministry. But lately I've been back into the worship, listening to the worship music. So I didn't know, and forgive me being so naive. I didn't know that Kirk Franklin was adopted. Maybe I probably heard in the past, but just didn't pay any attention to it. That's nothing against him. I just didn't know. So he started this documentary off by saying that we just so happened to be recording I think it's like his 14th or 15th album, studio album, well, his album, but they were in the studio and they were recording the behind the scenes. And all I can say about that is how amazing, like I can't even begin to stress to you all how God orders and aligns our steps. How amazing is our God? I mean, seriously. So at the very beginning, the singers were coming in, because y'all know Kirk can't sing. That's just, I'm not trying to throw no shade, but he don't sing. He plays and he produces. So the artists come in, Isaac Career, a whole bunch of other people, and this young lady by the name of Melody, who he later tells us that she is someone that he's known since she was a little girl, basically maybe like a friend of the family of a family of a friend or whatever. And that one of his aunts passed away. His biological aunt, his mother's sister. We later see his mother and his mother's other sister in this documentary. Deborah is his mother, and Sandra who's feisty, that is his aunt. And we find out that at this funeral for Deborah, and I don't know if it was Sandra's sister, so I don't want to speculate, but at this funeral that is a Melody's father's friend said, yeah, I used to date her back in the day. Now, I think their version of dating and my version of dating is kind of different. I think back in those days, date meant, do you know what I'm saying? Date meant we're going to shuck and jive for a minute. And then, you know what I'm saying? So then there was apparently there was some rumors and things going on throughout the church. And the mother, Deborah, then turned and called Kirk because she wanted to do alleged damage control. And, she said something that's very interesting. She said, I will not lie to you. And, spoiler alert, that's unfortunately, and Kirk is fully aware. You could tell that's just not the truth. We later find out that this gentleman, very handsome guy, you could not deny that is his father. They're both, similar in height. The father's a little bit more, huskier. This is in part 2 of the Revelation. But you later find out that the test comes back because the gentleman, his name, I believe, is, I forgot what his name is, Rick Hubbard. He, takes it upon himself to go get a DNA test, and he swabs himself. And then he sends Kirk the other swab, and then they send it in to their physician. And with that, they find out that the results are 99.999% that he is Kirk's father. That's in the Revelation part 2. And I like how Kirk was strategic in part 2, because although at the very beginning of part 2, when he found out the results, he was in complete, utter shock and disbelief. He thought it not robbery, but to set up a time to meet with not only Rick Hubbard, who is now, we now know that is his father, but he also takes a time out to schedule on the same day to save the rumor mill from talking to see his mother, Deborah, and Aunt Sandra. He then goes to see his Mr. Rick Hubbard first, who was his father. And they have a conversation. Rick was very inviting. He was very open. He basically said, I just wanted to, to make sure that, basically he crosses his T's and dots his I's. I just want to make sure that if there's a possibility that I know now. And he stressed to Kirk, I didn't know that your mom was pregnant. We were children. We were young. We were just hanging out. And when Kirk gives Mr. Hubbard the envelope, and he opens it up, he puts his glasses on, and he reads the results, and then you can tell that he's processing it. In that moment, I was just like, I really need for Kirk's father to reach out to hug him. This is a moment that you do not want to miss, that you reach out and you hug your son. Mr. Rick did not do that initially, but Kirk, you could tell that Kirk was like, you know what, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. We're going to embrace at some point, so let's just get it over with. But not get it over in a negative way, but just let's do this because I want you here. You could just tell he needed that closeness, that oneness, that heart-to-heart interaction. And they embraced. He then went to, after leaving Mr. Hubbard's house, he then went to his mother's house, or to his Aunt Sandra's house. And initially, Aunt Sandra is one of those aunties that, she's in your face, you're not going to disrespect me type of aunties. But in that moment, I think that she could tell when he first pulled up and he wanted her to sign the contract, basically releasing her rights and everything so that she could be filmed. Although he said he felt like a 10-year-old boy, I could tell that she was pulling back because she said this is the moment that maybe I don't want to overstep my boundaries with him. This is a very serious moment. And I'm glad that she honored that. He said he would wait for Deborah because when he first got there, Deborah was not there. He said, I'm going to wait for Deborah to get here. I'm going to wait for her to sign this, and then I will come in. He made sure he set that boundary very early on. Kirk also talked about being in therapy, by the way. Very, very awesome moment for him. He set that boundary, though. I will wait until she gets here, when she signs it, and then, and only then, will I come inside. And he did that. He then sat down with both of them, and he expressed his feelings about how he was as a child, as a little boy. And in that moment, Aunt Sandra took the backstage. She didn't cross the boundaries that we saw on camera. And Kirk gave, after giving his initial introduction or speech, he then gave, just as he did with Mr. Hubbard, gave Miss Deborah the envelope, and she read the results. And she said, this is not true. Now, let's go back, because in part one, Mr. Rick, who was the gentleman at the church, he said, I'm going to, basically took it upon himself to take this DNA test, swabbed himself, sent it, allowed Kirk to do whatever he wanted, decided that he wanted to do with it. If you decide that you want to swab yourself and do this DNA test with me to make sure, whatever result it's going to be, that the ball is in your court. And Kirk said, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. They were not in the same room. 2 separate occasions. And the test comes back 99.999%. The mother then says, this is not true. Mom also requested a second paternity DNA test. She said she wanted to be present. She didn't want Mr. Hubbard or Kirk to do anything with it. She wants to be in the room when it goes down. She wants to be there. And they both honored that. I don't know if that was Mr. Hubbard's wife that came with him, but Kirk was there, Mr. Hubbard, Miss Deborah, and Aunt Sandra, and a lady was with Mr. Hubbard. Here is what happened. The second test was done while Miss Deborah was in the place. That it was 99.999% positive that Mr. Rick, was Kirk's father. Mr. Rick gets up, he hugs Kirk, he embraces Kirk in that moment. Miss Deborah, sitting there in shock and disbelief, says, this is not true. In that moment, I stopped. I paused the video. I said, this is part of the problem. This right here. I'm a girl's girl. I like to support and empower women, in particular, because I'm a black woman, black women. But in that moment, I was extremely disappointed. I have seen this before. And sidebar, a lot of you all, if you're new, you're watching this, my commentary is based on the church, but in my pastime, I like to watch what they would call on YouTube the manosphere. And the manosphere is a culmination of men. It's like the red pill manosphere and manosphere proper, red pill proper. It's a lot. It's a lot. But what I've been saying for the last couple of years, amongst my group of friends to myself, is part of the issue as it pertains to men. Now, and I'm not putting all the blame on women, because when the father leaves the home, or situations happen, it's out of the mother's control. But in a situation like this, and I know people personally with situations just like this. I have a friend, his mother, he's been looking desperately for his father. He is in his 40s. He has children of his own. And he has been on the search for his father for a very long time. He keeps getting DNA tests done, and they keep coming back up negative. Here is what I will say about that. Part of the issue, part of it, I'm not going to blame it all on us. I'm not going to blame it. Some of it is from men. In a situation such as Kirk's situation and my friend's situation, this is a lack of accountability and living in denial. This is, I have a story in my head. I have been repeating the story for decades. And in my mind, if the story changes, then I become the liar. But when you have DNA evidence of a result that says that 99.99% Mr. Hubbard is the father, and I know that Kirk was trying his hardest to just work through this, in this moment, to all of the mothers out there, that this is a situation, especially the old school, can we be honest? My age and older, if this is you, this is a part of the problem. When we don't take ownership, and I'm saying we as a black woman, when you don't take ownership for the father of your child, listen, you might have been young. You might have been out here dipping and diving and doing it with multiple boys, or young teenage boys, or young men, however old you were. But that doesn't mean that you robbed your child of his experience, of who his father is, and of his life. That's not what that means. And so Miss Deborah, in that moment, she said, this is not true. Her sister then turns to her. In that moment, she said, if this, you gotta just tell the truth. In this moment, you have to tell the truth. What I could surmise from that moment is Miss Deborah did not. She lived in denial. She lived in that. She wanted to remain right. And I talk a lot about the pastors on here. I give them a lot of hell. I talk a lot about them living in their own world and not being accountable. And this was a missed opportunity to be accountable. Thankfully, Kirk had Miss Gertrude and others in his life that helped to keep him on a somewhat straight path, not without, rocky moments, not without some sort of scandal or issue. But at 53 years old, he is able to still be sitting here and standing here and having his trust in God, even though the lie is still over here simmering. It was a missed opportunity. And I thought it not robbery. I didn't want to discuss this on my channel where I'm talking about, a pastor or leader being in some scandal. This is different. You have to be, as a content creator, we have to be wise enough to know what will fit and what does not fit. And I think that I would be doing my subscribers a disservice by trying to commingle them together. About 2 years ago, I was introduced to Kirk's son, Kerryon. Very handsome young man. He has now built a name for himself. He's a producer just like his dad. And Kerryon came in part 3 of Reconciliation, he came into the studio. To a room, not a studio, a room rather. And he sat down with Kirk, and Kirk, he came across very much so aggressive. He came in with guns blazing. He came in, you could tell he was still worked up from that last interaction that they had. And Kirk just basically sat there and said, listen, there's something that I want to share with you. It's going to make a difference. I'm giving you my paraphrasing my own words. It's going to make a difference, and hopefully you'll understand where I am, because it's going to be where you are as well. You're going to be in a similar place, not the same, but a similar place as I am because of this news I have to bring to you. And he, I believe he gave, I forgot if he gave it to him or not, but I know that I think he gave the results. And in that moment, you saw Kerryon, a grown man, taller than his dad, kind of tower, like I used to do my mom. You know, I'm 5'11", my mom was 5'3", kind of towering over him. And you saw him shrink to a child. Humble, emotional, in disbelief, shock, just like Kirk was. Trying to pull the pieces together. Trying to operate in a space where he needs to now reevaluate where his life is going to go, based upon the fact that now you have someone that is alive, that you might be able to garner a relationship with. I wanted to record this because in all of my conversations on YouTube, it's mostly male pastors that I talk about. Mostly male pastors that have a lot of scandal, unfortunately. I don't create it, I just talk about it. But today, I sat in this room and I watched it. I watched the documentary. I don't know who the producer was, but they did one hell of a job. Kudos to you, because you made what was a 30-minute or so documentary seem like it was 2 hours long. I did not want to turn it off. My heart goes out to Kirk and his family, because now he has to learn how to exist in a space as a celebrity, as a gospel artist. He travels all over the world, to now being a child for his dad. I can be highly critical of these people. I really can. Could be highly critical, highly controversial. But this, I did not want to mix the moment of being critical of one pastor and then talking about something like this. It just didn't feel right. Just didn't feel like something that I needed to do. This deserved its own video because of the severity of the matter, because I don't think this is what Bishop J. Drew Sheard was trying to do for the Church of God in Christ. In this moment, what Kirk Franklin has done is allowed the Lord, first of all, God did it. God did it. But what Kirk has done is allow God to move in such a way that this will spark a conversation all over the world with black men, black male children, and black fathers, and those who may be displaced, those who might be coming into the body of Christ, those who might be trying to garner a connection with their children, or trying to find out, okay, do I have any children out here? What is that? That 360, that the family tree, the DNA joint, Ancestry.com. This is going to spark so much conversation that I firmly believe that families will be mended because of it. Although at the end of the documentary, it showed that he had not spoken to his mother, Deborah, after the results. That was still a ministry moment. Still. When I tell you this thing was so powerful, when I tell you that I have, it's been a long time that a YouTube video has left me speechless. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since I sat down and watched the video and I was in complete awe, where I had to stop what I was doing. And again, when the feeling hit me, I had to just record it. This is not a moment that you want to miss. To give someone that is alive in the sector that I talk about their flowers, because he decided to listen to the voice of God. I don't think that people understand this, that he thought he was having a videographer in the room for his album. But God knew that his aunt was going to transition, and that Deborah and that Rick would be in the same place at the same time. This right here, single-handedly, can restore millions across the world. That right there was ministry. And I hope to goodness that, because Kirk has more children, that they have now garnered a relationship with Mr. Hubbard, and that they are trying to figure out a way to coexist together in a space that is still probably somewhat fragile, a little rocky, but all in all, they will come together for the greater good. And only God knows, and only time will tell what's going to happen in the future with this relationship. I pray that Kirk and his mother, Deborah, mend fences. But if they don't, he's still, you can tell, I can tell based upon the embracing, that he still will have that ongoing developing relationship with Mr. Rick Hubbard, his father. This was a job well done. Absolutely, positively, no criticism whatsoever from here. I actually want more. I think that this right here is what I believe Pastor YPJ mentioned it at the end of last year, is that God's going to raise up people to do some uncommon things. Isn't that something? I don't want to call this foolish, but it's almost like that scripture that he takes the foolish things to confound the wise. This is not a foolish thing. It's not a foolish thing. But the scripture is befitting for this moment. Because at this moment in time, he took an album, documentary, right? To bring forth this level of ministry. Souls will be saved by this. Souls will be saved. This is what I talk about on my channel when the pastors miss opportunities. I don't even know if Kirk Franklin considers himself a minister, but he just did the work of the Lord by sharing, by overcoming, and sharing his testimony. That's what the book of Revelation says. They overcome them by the by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. He just testified of the goodness of God and what God did. He just sat there in that moment and said, listen, I just thought that I was recording for my album. Who could have told me this was next? When I wasn't even thinking about my parent, my father. Because the man, he said that the man that he buried, he thought was his father. I think the gentleman died in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. He thought his father was gone. And in 2023, at 53 years old, the Lord has a ram in the bush for Kirk and for so many other men. He said he wants to put together something for the men. I hope that he really does it. I hope God brings it to fruition and that they do some great work on the ground. I'm not saying he has to do the footwork, even though I did see that. That there may be some footwork that needs to be done for the people, for the men. And I'm not saying Kirk has to do it. Somebody will put boots on the ground to do it. But I think this was a great moment, and I just know that God is pleased. This right here was ministry. Anyway, you guys, thank you for watching my video. I appreciate you. Again, if you're new, please consider subscribing. I will be hopefully live soon, but I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and I'll check you all later.